So I'm just going to talk about a couple of incidents that we've had recently. Starting off with the Kingsnorth incident, where unfortunately one of our colleagues has severed part of his finger. Had to go and interview that chap at his home address, and he was quite distressed, in a lot of pain. But he was also quite embarrassed about what had happened and felt he'd let people down. So I just want to talk to you about that incident. .400 kV cable pull with 3 bends. Pulled the cable off the drum, pulled it around the first bend. Consensus was, went like a dream. There'd been some delays on the project due to program issues and weather and 1 or 2 other issues. Second bend hadn't got packed, just freestanding rollers. Decided to pull up to that bend. They'd raised some safety concerns that they didn't think the job could be done in the time. They certainly had a perception there was a lot of pressure to get this cable in. There was contingencies, but that hadn't really been relayed to the guys who were pulling the cable. When they got to the second bend, they decided to pull it around that bend, even though it hadn't been packed and the rollers were just freestanding. And what actually happened was, as part of this pull, this roller, which is shown here, it ended up falling onto the ground. And the supervisor went into the trench to reset the roller, while three of his colleagues, one using a plank of wood, wedged the cable up, and there was 2 others on the nose of the cable, lifting it up while he did this. But one of the guys on the end of the cable wasn't part of the cable pull gang. He was a telehandler operator who had seen them struggling a little bit and decided to come over and lend a hand. But he'd been watching them trying to get the cable round the bend, and he didn't appreciate that they were just lifting it up to reset this roller. So as they had the cable elevated while the supervisor was in the trench trying to reset it, this chap tried to bend it into the corner, which resulted in the cable dropping. And unfortunately, his finger got caught between the steelwork and the roller, and he ended up severing his finger off. A lot of issues surrounding this incident. There was issues about time and how pressured they felt to do the job. But to be honest, I went to the site a couple of days after the incident, and it was very, very poor, if I'm honest. There was open trenches, there was huge piles of wood with 10-inch nails sticking out of it. I wasn't joking when I said to people, Adam showed a clip of Blackadder. It reminded me of the final scene in that show in the First World War setting when they came over the top. It was like a First World War trench. Parts of the site, the mud was so deep, I would have been up to my knee in it. Nobody had raised any safety issues about those. None of them had been entered anywhere. Multiple people had seen that bend with cable experience, and nobody had stopped it. Everybody allowed it to go on, even though everybody knew it was wrong. Some of the learning points, some of the themes. The job wasn't ready to pull the cable all the way around, that was clear. The method statement hadn't been briefed. It was deemed not suitable, but no dialogue was had to revise it. There was definite perceived pressure to get the job done. There was a lack of brother's keeper and a reluctance to stop the job. And safety concerns that were raised about that particular job and general site conditions weren't really addressed. I'm going to show a few quotes afterwards from the actual incident, so we'll park it for now, there for now. But unfortunately, within a few weeks, we've had another major injury. A fractured arm in this case. In fact, the last 3 incidents that we've had, they haven't been just RID or reportable, there'd been major injuries: a broken foot, a severed finger, and a broken arm. This investigation is still ongoing, but I really wanted to share with you at least what we know so far. The platform had been raised either the day before or a couple of days before, and on this particular task was raising the spacer trolley here. That point there was where the holding out rope was taken. Now, some of you guys who are far more experienced than me will say, well, why was it out there? Why was it at that angle? Why was he there? Well, the reason was, or what has been stated as a reason, this is a golf course. There's a lot of golf balls pinging around. But the day before, they'd had a major golf tournament, and there were loads of golfers walking through here, right where ideally he would have been located with that holding out rope. And what happened was, because of his position, it was quite a heavy-duty task physically to do. And just happened to be at that location, there was a park bench. And that park bench was used as a friction brake. This particular bench here, you may not see it too clearly, but there's a metal post with a wooden top on the bench. And what had happened was, it had got stuck. And as the operative went to release it, it drew him in, and it caused him to break his arm. We don't know the full details of why he did this, but clearly there was issues about how the job was planned, in terms of the golf course, the risk to the members of the public, which I think is one of the reasons why he wanted to pull it from where he was, because he had concerns where the golfers were and he wanted to avoid them in the work area. But both incidents, to me, one of the themes is people ended up doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. They wanted to get the cable in, they thought there was pressure to get it in by a certain date. This chap wanted to avoid the golfers. They haven't followed procedure, they haven't followed process. We need to understand why these people ended up in these positions. But for me, going back on the other slide, don't need to bring it back up, but people who are upstairs, they would have seen the angle of the rope. People saw the state of the second bend. Where was the brother's keeper? Why didn't people interject and say that's wrong? In this particular job, the guy at his arm, and my understanding is, even with a broken arm, the job still didn't stop. He carried on. He went to the point he should have been in the first place and basically got it up with one arm. Why did nobody stop it? I don't understand. Just before I show you some clips of direct statements from the Kingsnorth incident, there's a story Barry McGuigan, or a quote Barry McGuigan always made. He's a boxer, you know, I'm big into sport, I always quote sporting quotations. One of his favourite sayings is about boxers. He said, people think they're the last to know when to quit. He said, that's rubbish. They're the first to know, last to admit it. And I think a lot of occasions when people are working unsafely, they don't need me or anybody else to tell them they're working unsafely. They know. They know the risks they're taking. I think we just need to think about it.